Some of the most interesting answers of innovation in the past year involve a paradox. Be close to your teams, but remain socially distant. Invest in innovation while reducing cost. Support your local restaurants, but stay at home. These paradoxes catalyzed a reset moment for the world. To explore these paradoxes, I'm excited to share Become 2021, our annual innovation research with Harvard Business Review Analytics Services. Become 2021 captures both the personal and business side of innovation, surveying 10,000 plus consumers and 1,800 plus executives globally and interviewing 20 plus CEOs and executives across different industries. This research unlocks new insights into how businesses can better manage their today and innovate for a brighter future tomorrow. As you explore Become 2021's reports and index, you will find the research identifies 5 areas businesses can focus on through recovery and into a new era of innovation. With me today are 2 outstanding people, Arvind Krishna, President and CEO of IBM, and Margaret Keane, the Executive Chair of Synchrony. And we're here together to talk and connect and share our ideas. Something I know we all want to do more of in 2021.
I'm going to build on what Michael you said. So I completely agree. Innovation is a journey, but it's a journey that never ends. It's a state you've got to live in to really get the full benefit. And we can see from all the surveys, our clients, our employees, all of our stakeholders want us to be innovating continuously. So when you say that it's a continuous journey, then you got to make sure that the organization has the mindset for it. Some people will call it being an entrepreneur, some people will call it being in a growth mindset, but you got to have the mindset. So I think that's the most important thing for all of us to understand and to help propagate through the organization. The next thing, Michael, building on your point about technology, is but innovation can be more than technology. Innovation has got to be there in every aspect of the organization. How do you face customers? How do you do your back-end processes? You use the word digital. As you go through digital, reimagine the process so you can take things out. If I look at the last few months, the first 3 months of the pandemic were all about remote work. Then you had to shift to how do you really get close to your customer now that you're not in front of them all the time. And then how do you go through those journeys? And those are just 2 very, very quick examples. And then going on from there to how do you now begin to take advantage, not just of all of the innovation, but how do you take advantage of what you don't need to do anymore in order to reimagine your enterprise. So I really think there's quite a few aspects of innovation that is going to actually, I think, help us all emerge stronger. So this is a unique crisis where I think that those of us who emerge well will actually be even stronger down the road than when we started.
I couldn't agree with both of you more. I think what I think about is in 2020, we kind of ripped the cover off a whole bunch of things. And we sat back and things that we were trying to get our partners to participate in, all of a sudden was a big urgency. Just the way consumers were behaving, the fact that people wanted contactless. You know, we were talking at Mastercard about contactless, that became a priority. So I think the merging of the consumer experience and the partner experience into how we were trying to innovate just accelerated tremendously. And we know that, as you know, I'm in retail, we had to really spend a lot of time helping some of our partners get digitized, if you will, and really help them change their consumer experience. And I think, you know, one of the things, and you said it, Arvind, it's not just about the technology, it's about innovating processes and also helping partners, you know, accelerate the change they need to make in order to meet the needs of their customers. And in this particular experience, during the pandemic, people weren't going in stores, they were shopping online. So how do we as a partner with these retailers really help accelerate their change? So I feel like this whole innovation really that's happened this past year has really set a new stage for us in terms of how the customer wants to experience things. And I think we're still learning on how that's going to expand going forward. So I think it's a pretty exciting journey going forward. There are 5 focus areas that came out of the survey, and I think for us, you know, digital agility is what it's all about. So for us, it's about, you know, how does that customer experience our retail partners and our partners, but then more importantly, how does that transform to contactless, being in the moment when you're shopping, that cart, understanding what the customer is looking at, and then taking that all the way through to the back end, which is how they want to experience their customer service experience. And we're seeing more and more everyone wants to be digital. And so I think our work and the work that we're going to continue to do is really think about that value chain from a customer experience perspective and think about that digital roadmap and how do we accelerate every single aspect of it. I think for us, we've done a good job on the front end. We have a lot of work to really get that experience seamless all the way through for that customer.
I would build on what Margaret said by saying, look, it's really hard to pick amongst those 5 because all 5 are really important and we kind of agree with that. That said, our role is to really help, whether it's Synchrony or whether it's Mastercard, to get their journeys done on all 5 of them. So for us, maybe strategic investments is the most important. And so doing the strategic investment so that we can help others on their digital journeys, on their AI and data journeys, on their cybersecurity journeys, allows us to then be the best partner to everyone. And so the strategic investments we are making, and you've got to be able to look around the corner a little bit in artificial intelligence, in hybrid cloud, and quantum computing, really enables everything else also, is where I would go.
Yeah. The one thing I really agree on is you cannot really choose amongst the 5. So, when I look at the 5 categories and I look at the reality of Mastercard, the reality of our customers, they all matter. Of course, customer experience in the end rules because that's the outcome of the other 4 in the end. So, that's kind of where I would point to. But you just talked about the role of IBM. So the role of Mastercard when it comes to enabling commerce, it's a lot about trust. It's a lot about data, ironclad security. That is just table stakes. So there will be no good customer experience without the security fully sorted out. And that's part of our partnerships with Synchrony, with others, and so forth. The good thing is we do not need to make a choice amongst the 5. I think the trick comes really in as you manage through a year like 2020, revenues are impacted in some business models with our customers, even for ourselves. So where's your investment decision? Where do you see, where is this consumer behavior, Margaret, that you talk, where is that going? As and when is there a state of readiness there that you really have to invest ahead of the curve? So balancing all of that is important. We had a lot of things that were going on in the world of payments for years. I just had to stop them, and there's other things that you came in. So being agile, to your point, Margaret, in terms of resource allocation across the 5, I think that's where the art lies in all of this. But CX rules. Whoever has the best in the end will win with the consumer.
When we think about remote work, the first thing we had to do when the pandemic began was to get 98% of our people, 350,000 people, working remotely. That occupied a good weekend, I would say. We were lucky that we are a tech company, so we were kind of prepared for it to some extent. But when you think about service delivery, like when we work with a client and you have to do service delivery, we were very used in the past to having people on site. Now you got to work remotely. That becomes a journey between us and our clients, and we're really happy to say, I think that'll become a permanent state, because that actually is an enabler of productivity. Now you can bring the best people globally onto a given project as opposed to having to worry about only those who could physically be there. And that's a big plus. So we go from where it was a necessity in March of 2020 to where now this is a innovation that I think will stay with us. But once you go beyond remote work, I am not convinced that remote work is going to be the way of the future. I think humans love to get together. I think the creative side of it often requires being together. Now, that doesn't mean that we need to be in the office 40, 50, or 60 hours a week. So I think it'll become a hybrid where for the majority of our people, they're in the office some. I can't predict right now whether it's going to be 2, 3, or 3.5 days a week, and the rest may be somewhere else. There may be 10, 20% who work remotely, but that's probably always been the case. And it'll be that mixture that is there. By the way, I've heard from a lot of people. I think a good third of our people would like to be in the office all the time. They find it too distracting to be at home. And I can imagine if you have certain crowded areas, like think inner cities or think young families, it's tough to be at home.
The transformation was just phenomenal in how quick it happened. I think for us, we made the decision and, we don't have as many employees, but we have global employees and we have big call centers. So we really were challenged with how do we get all the equipment to our call center employees, particularly in Asia. And, I think a couple of things happen that I think are things culturally that we want to hold on to. One is, normally we'd have like this big meeting on how much it was going to cost to move everyone at home, and we'd have PowerPoints and we'd debate and do we want to, we made the decision and the team went. We never looked back. And I think, the reality is we made the right decision to really protect our employees, as well. And then I think your point about the customers, a lot of our engagement is at the retailers. The retailers really didn't want us wandering around their stores either. So we had to think of a different way to engage with our partners as they were going through, trauma themselves and really trying to keep it all together. So I think for us, we really adjusted pretty well. I think the thing that's really interesting to me is this ability to do innovation while you're at home. So, I would go out, and we had some work at home prior to this, and we would have these meetings, and people would say, can I work at home? And we'd say, no, that's not really going to work for your role. I think what we learned is pretty much anything can be worked from home. Now, your point of how does this look down the road? We've done a lot of surveys. We know that there are a percentage of employees who want to stay at home, but then there are a number of employees who want to come back full time, and then there's employees who want 3 days a week. So I think we will end up in a hybrid situation, and I think the challenge for us as CEOs is how do we keep that culture that we've built in our companies as we're in that hybrid situation, where someone's maybe sitting at home and someone else is in a conference room, and how do we make sure that we don't lose something in that translation? But I do agree that people are meant to be together, and there's going to have to be a forum to ensure that even those who work at home all the time have the ability to come together somehow. And so that's a lot of the work we're doing now. What does the future of work look like in the sense of retaining our culture and also figuring out how do we bring all our employees together in a certain location in the places we are so we keep that culture going. So I think it's still a new endeavor for all of us, but I think it's pretty exciting, and I think it's great to have the employees engaged in that process to really tell us what they want. But I think until we're all back in the office and there's some hybrid situation, it's still going to be a big learning for all of us.
Yeah, it's a fascinating dialogue that we're having, and it's no surprise that when you table the topic while we're still, in certain parts of the world, offices are locked down because there's a government mandate and so forth. You ask the question, well, what would you prefer? Well, nobody's going to say, I want to be back in the office. We're in the middle of a crisis. So I think we're all kind of looking at the situation through the lens of the current time. But then there is the header of the future of work that sounds like, okay, we have a lot of time to figure this out, but the future of the work is around the corner. It's actually 3 months away because vaccination rates are increasing, and I think we owe an answer or an outcome out of these deliberations with our teams. But I think it's important to think about this not only in the context of, are we going to be in the office, are we going to be hybrid, are we going to be all remote? I think there's the broader questions on what are you going to do in the office when you're there? So the question of, is this really to come together to collaborate? Yeah, of course, that makes a lot of sense. And come together to have a bunch of meetings on repetitive stuff. Maybe we should partner with IBM to automate that. And that might be the better idea. So I think there's these broader questions on where should ways of working go? And then you answer the question of how does the whole office thing. Now, the hybrid piece sounds very charming. We take all the learnings from last year. We all turned our company on a dime, and we figured this out. That's great. And there's a lot of flexibility, and people will not go to Singapore for a 3-hour meeting any longer. So the craziness is kind of gone. So we want to preserve that. And then there is the other side of it, which are questions that I think we need to take the time over the next couple of months to address. Like, we're almost sitting here in person, but Margaret sits here on a screen. If this would be the way of working in the future, and then you have a couple of people that, for whatever circumstances in their life, they chose to be always remote. And then you start to think that through, what does that mean? For the conversation that happens when you press the off button on Zoom, because the real conversation happens in the 5 minutes thereafter, whoa, what did you think? So I think there's these aspects of hybrid that I think we need to understand and then be quite careful and see, all right, well, for certain things, it will actually be better to be in person together. It's a journey. Right now, I feel very little pressure to go out and be very declarative. But 3 months from now, I think we're going to have a lot better line of sight and hopefully some answers on these questions.
Completely agree. And I also worry about what will be the career path for remote employees if 2/3 are in the office and 1/3 are remote.
Exactly, yeah.
These are all unanswered questions.
Yeah.
You know, and I also think even for entry-level employees, like in your leadership like we have a leadership program, you know, not bringing them in to actually ever see we have people who joined us last year still haven't been in any of our offices, right? So even thinking through how you integrate new employees into the company, I think are going to be interesting in this hybrid model because you want them to feel the company. And I think sometimes it's hard to do from afar.
These people, all of our employees who worked so well through the last year and got us through this mess, I think there was an advantage there was social capital that was built that sits there and you can use it. But then there's 1,000 people we hired last year. There's no social capital. That's really something you kind of figure out.
Capital, by its nature, you can draw it down, but at some point you have to
there's
replenish
nothing to
it.
draw down from. That's going to erode.
Thanks for this conversation. It's been great to get to know both of you even further as we discuss so many topics today. I think what I really loved about the conversation is the commonalities we all have of the challenges that we're facing. I mean, it was very interesting. We all like fed off of each other in terms of where we need to go, how do we need to focus on our partners, our customers, where is innovation going, where are we investing, you know, the challenges of being a CEO, which is, you know, a lonely job sometimes. So it's great to see the three of us sharing our stories and how similar those stories really are.
So building on Margaret, first of all, we agree. We learn from each other, and it's really good to see that we all kind of face the same challenges, especially during this past year. But that said, what is really, to me, is so energizing is the insights I gather from Margaret, from Michael, from the conversation about small things. When Michael uses the examples of how he has to manage during the pandemic, when Margaret talks about how do you actually get to her clients in turn. You pick up things and nuggets from that you can then take back into your own organization. And it's also commonality, but also little nuggets that actually help improve yourself.
Agree with all of that. It was a fun conversation. This morning I thought, I don't really know these two, so let's see where this goes. And I feel I know you quite a lot better now. What I took a lot of motivation from, aside everything that you already said, is 3 formidable companies with a fundamental orientation to really make a difference. You know, for our people, you talked about the customers, we talked about, you know, creating experiences, solving problems. And, you know, if this is where the private sector is going, there's all these conversations about stakeholder capitalism and you name it. I think this just came across, this isn't just talk. It is happening, at least certainly in these 3 companies, and I feel the 3 of us are going to try to make a difference beyond our own business. So I'm walking away very encouraged as I step into my new role, and I think there'd be 2 phone numbers that I keep in the back of my pocket to say, hey, you know, how did you do that? We covered a wide range of topics today. Thank you to Arvind and Margaret for joining us. To learn more about today's Become Index, news and findings, please visit becomeindex.com. We have much more to come in the Mastercard Conversations series. I'll talk with tech and business leaders, customers and partners who are disrupting the present and shaping the future through compelling insights and innovative approaches. Until next time, signing off from New York.